Self-cultivation is not selfish. Self-cultivation leads to service, and you can only give what you have. And so if you want to give more, you need to allow more for yourself in your life, more expansion, more letting, there it is, like more expansion of your consciousness, of your capacity to express your most authentic truth in its fullest expression, in its entirety. And that requires letting go of a lot of fear, letting go of a lot of thought identification, letting go of a lot of limiting beliefs, letting go of a lot of agreements made in fear. Because again, like all these things are really, these dots are all being connected. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So let's say you're a life coach and you have some beliefs that are deeply rooted in fear and you have some limiting beliefs, then you're going to be projecting those upon your people, right? You got to free yourself from that so that you don't project it upon them, and so that you don't hold them in judgment based on your own self-perception rooted in fear. Like, there's a lot there. This is what yoga is. This is yoga. It's not even about the posture. The posture is what I'm going to call the tool we use to get there and the indication that we have.
Welcome to another episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. I'm your host, Omar Coverbatch of OmarCoverbatch.com. Appreciate you joining in, learning all the new and good stuff in the health and wellness space regarding the health coach occupation. Apologize for sounding a little nasally. I'm just coming off a unusual sinus infection. I haven't had one of these in a long time, but neither here nor there. We got to get to business in today's show. I'm really excited to share today's guest because initially, when I met Kim Tang, it was all about yoga, and she definitely dives into this. And I had the audience in mind because there's a lot of yoga practitioners who are health coaches and just health coaches who are interested in yoga, and just the way the universe works, it just spiraled into just a deeper conversation about yoga and just perspectives on life and how to integrate it in different portions of your life. It's really, really a fascinating conversation. So I'm definitely excited to share it. It just so happens to coincide. And that's one of the interesting things. We did this recording a couple months back and I had the conversation, never realized that going to the release date, I've been kind of diving in the Course of Miracles material right now. And she says a lot of things that resonate with me now. So it's just really like a whole bunch of synchronicities happening all at the same time, and comes at the time of the year ending and wrapping up. So I really appreciated this particular episode, and I may do another episode before the year's out, but not 100% sure. I'd like to give all the guests a nice opportunity to shine, especially during the holidays, because so many people are busy, and I just don't want to throw too many episodes out there where might interfere with what they're doing. But hey, listen, the way Kim would describe it, if their person's meant to listen to this episode, they will. And if not right now, then eventually down the road. And I know that resonated with me, and I know whoever needs to hear this episode will not, like she would say, not hear just this week or through the rest of 2023, but in the future as well. So jump on iTunes, please leave a rating and review. It goes a long way so I can continuously get great guests like Kim. If you're looking for a stocking stuffer, me and Lori did release our food journal. Check a look at it. It's on Amazon.com. Of course, it's called This Food Journal Burns Fat. It's a really cute book that can spur a lot of weight loss going forward in the new year. So it's something that I think it will be a cool stocking stuffer. And that's how we've been marketing it out there, and it's been doing pretty good. So yeah, take a look at that. Of course, if you're interested in the course for podcasting business boosts, just jump on my website. I have a dedicated page to that as well. So yeah, looking forward to sharing that with you. And if you can, share it with anybody who would be interested in doing the same. Let's jump into the show. Hey, Kim, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Omar. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, no, very excited to have you. I see what you're doing online is very, very impressive. And like we were talking off air, like yoga is something that a lot of us health coaches are into. And what we've seen you do online is unbelievable. And I know that you do this practice and you have a great, great origin story. So I'd love to hear you. I want to give you an opportunity to get the audience to get to know you a little bit better.
Thank you. Okay, where will we begin? Always with love and gratitude. Love and gratitude are the highest frequencies. And so I want to thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having an interest in what I have to share,
Absolutely.
primarily to your audience of health coaches. And already, when I'm looking this way, I'm looking at the notes that I've taken from our conversation just before we started. And I want to tell you who I am in the form that will become a kind of the theme of our conversation. So rather than a long story, I'm going to really filter it through a specific perspective of who we're speaking to, and therefore what my journey has been in that regard. So I want to tell you that this thing, yoga, is not like a class that you take. It's not like a stretch and fitness class. So when we talk about our yoga instructors, and some of your audience is really into, yoga, doing yoga. So for the moment, we'll agree that yoga is not a class. Yoga is a state of being. It's a frequency, and it's a journey. Of course, we've all heard through the self to the self. And so it's kind of the inner work. The reason that I wanted to really frame it that way is because, especially for health coaches, your journey begins with doing the inner work. Because really the theme that we're going to get to here is what I'm going to call who you are is how you serve. I hope to repeat that over and over throughout this conversation so that I can really impress upon you kind of how important that is. Now, when people have asked me historically, oh, what do you do? They're looking for an answer like, oh, I'm a yoga teacher, except that is quite literally the tip of the iceberg. So what I want to tell you is that the journey through the self to the self is what I'm also going to call self-cultivation leads to service. And what I mean by that, again, is that who you are in its highest form, fully expressed, in its most authentic truth, is how you serve. So that's something that I'm going to offer all life coaches. When people say, what do you do? They're looking for like, I'm a life coach. But let me give it to you this way. What I do is I connect to my truth. I come from love. And anything and everything that the universe presents for me on that day is what I'm going to call what I'm doing. So I have this schedule, and I know I need to show up at a certain place at a certain time, and we agree upon that. We agree that it'll last for an hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. But that's not what I do. What I do is I live in pure time presence, in a field of trust with no judgment, in service on every level of being, in every moment of my life. And that's actually what I do. Who I am is how I serve. So sometimes I serve in the form of spreading the word like this through the podcasts. Sometimes I serve in the form of anything and everything yoga on a global scale. Sometimes I serve in the form of conscious connected breath work. And sometimes I serve in the form of quantum healing hypnosis technique. But in every moment I'm in service, even and especially in the in-betweens, and even and especially in the moments that I would not have predicted or even thought that I would have chosen. So in other words, it might be a moment in a grocery store where I can sense that someone is in need. It might be any and every moment that we live in. It's like an awareness of connection and a very high level of interdependence in humanity. So I know I'm putting out something kind of like really big, right, in the beginning of the conversation. But you might ask, well, like, what does that have to do with yoga, right? Because you're inviting me to speak as a yoga teacher, and a lot of, health coaches are yoga teachers, do yoga like yoga. So, and to which my response, remember, was that this is about actually self-cultivation, the journey to the self through the self. So here's what I mean by that. And I'm going to give you something right now. I'm going to give you what I'm going to call 5 and 4. So if you want to press pause, grab a pen and paper so that you can kind of like write this down. I want you to track this because this is as concise as it can possibly be in the connection between yoga, not as something you like to do, not as a fitness class, but as a frequency, as a consciousness, a state of being and who you are in truth. And how does that connect to life? It's what I call the consciousness with which you conduct your practice, is the consciousness with which you conduct your life. So you learn it on the mat to use it in the life. So the first thing is this. On your mat in a yoga class, you're using the body as a learning device for the mind. And there are specifically 5 aspects of mind that you are cultivating on the mat. And they are, number 1, self-control. Number 2, determination. Number 3, patience. Number 4, faith. And number 5, concentration, the ability to concentrate. That is something you do not learn in school. So you're meant to learn those on the mat so that you actually can use them in the life, because again, the consciousness with which you cultivate your practice will translate to the consciousness with which you navigate your life. It's about self-cultivation, the journey, the inner journey. So that when somebody asks you, well, what do you do? And you say, I'm a health coach. Well, in fact, you are the most authentic and highest version of yourself in service to others in the form of being a health coach, right? That's like the more accurate of the answers. So we got the 5 modifications of the mind that we're cultivating on the mat in the form of a yoga practice. And now I want to also bring in the 4, I'm going to call it pillars, that you can use as a foundation of your life with that knowing of a practice. And they are, number 1, non-judgment. So many times we practice a yoga class in front of a mirror, and that mirror is not just to help you set your gaze for the balance and look at level shoulders and hips. The mirror is also there quite literally to help you learn to look straight into your own eyes without judging yourself. Just to see who you are in your entirety. And by the way, every single human has the right to be exactly as they are in the moment they stand in, with everything they've chosen to learn through and everything they're up against, especially with respect to limiting beliefs and what I'm going to call agreements made in fear. So when you look straight into your own eyes in the mirror and you learn not to judge yourself, only then can you support on all the levels of, now we're talking about not just life coaching, but space holding, to be able to receive someone in their entirety with their right to be exactly as they are in the moment, with everything they've chosen to learn through and everything that they're up against. So that non-judgment thing is the way to facilitate transformation. And that is pure gold to the life coaches. Number 1, non-judgment. Number 2, non-attachment. And that non-attachment means I am right here, right now in this moment on every level of being, doing exactly what we're doing. And I am not thinking of anything that has already happened, that hasn't happened yet, and I have no intended outcome. I am right here, right now in pure presence. And that is where the magic happens. So non-judgment, non-attachment. Now, number 3, non-reaction. Okay, that is a biggie, because that's maybe a bigger conversation. We can get into it if we have time. I would love to. But for anyone who might have delved into A Course in Miracles or any of the spiritual wisdom teachings like that, reaction is a function of the ego. And by ego, I don't mean arrogance. That's not actually what ego means. ego is identification of self as separate. It's, I'm going to call it who you think you are as a personality self. And the function of the ego, which resides in the left hemisphere of the brain, is to actually activate the past and project it into the future. And so when the ego receives information, it's reacting based on past experience. And then, so what you're reacting to is seldom what's happening in pure time presence in a field of trust with no judgment. So that non-reaction thing, there's a lot there that we can unpack. And let me just get the fourth one down on the table. So we have non-judgment, non-attachment, non-reaction, and the fourth one is non-resistance. Now, this is also like each and every one of these things, all 5 of the modifications of the mind, all 4 of the pillars that we stand on as a foundation in a yoga practice, all of these are entire conversations to unpack. So we'll just touch on each one, and then I'll pause and I'll see where you want to go with it. So the last one, non-resistance. Here's what I want to tell you about that. The truth is that the greatest aspect of spirituality is what I'm going to call accountability. Accountability for your life. We don't see things as they are. We see things as we are. So we take a self-perception and we project it as our point of attraction to manifest the world we see. And when you can actually look at your manifestations and be accountable for them, frankly, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the moments that you think you would not have chosen, which are what I call the most extraordinary moments, when you can get in there and untangle those manifestations on the causal plane, again, which is thoughts and beliefs and self-identification with what you've chosen to learn through, when you can be accountable for even the moments that you think you would not have chosen, then you are extraordinarily self-empowered to be deliberate, more deliberate about the creation of your life. So, in other words, non-resistance means saying yes to every moment that you stand in, even and especially what I have come to call the most extraordinary moments, which are typically the ones that you think you would not have chosen. So I think we should pause there. I need to have a check-in with you. We've had the 5 modifications of the mind. We've had the 4 pillars that we stand on, and we've had some big concepts like who you are in truth is how you serve, and the self-cultivation leads to that service. Okay.
Yeah.
Where we're supposed to go.
All right. Now that was an awesome foundation to jump into. Before we jump into it, I'm just curious, how did you amass so much of this information? I know that there had to be a turning point at some point in your life where you just absorbed all this knowledge and studied obviously deeply these principles. So I just want to hear a little bit about that. Then we'll get busy with the other stuff.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that I'm in my Dharma, and we could talk about this from any number of perspectives. So I want to tell you that if you delve into my, I'm going to call it asana history, which means the practice of yoga, hatha yoga, doing yoga postures. So there was something that happened for me when I was a very ambitious student, and then I became a teacher, and then I built actually the largest studio in the Coachella Valley, and I owned it, ran it, directed it, taught a lot of the classes. But really, the most important aspect of that for me was that I came into this period of my life that I've come to call creation. And I want to tell you that I was in that room. Okay, so it's a business that I own, right? And so I would get there, return all the phone calls and the voicemails, and check the accounts and do the tells, and whatever was required, anything and everything. And then I'd go in and teach the class. But there's typically in a studio, there's a morning block of classes, and then there's an afternoon block of classes. And I had a big gap in the schedule in the in-betweens. And so I was in that room cultivating my practice for like 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours a day, 3, 4, most often 5 days a week. And I came to a moment where I felt I was literally, and I'm just gonna speak into my truth. I felt like I was channeling a guru because I was in this place of perpetual inspiration. I would lay my body down at night when I would go to bed, and all I could think about was what I'm going to call, how can I? And that was the consciousness with which I cultivated some of the strongest, deepest, and most correct postures in the history of all yoga, all lineages over the span of 5,000 years of practice, so of yoga. And so I was really receiving some wisdom, and that wisdom is actually condensed into this thing that I call my wisdom deck. And it's really a lot about biomechanics. And that's why I say, if you reside in a musculoskeletal system in a field of gravity, then I'm talking to you. And it doesn't matter if you're like the 70-year-old broken, scared, stiff, calcified first timer, maybe or maybe not, even with prosthetics, or if you're a naturally flexible 20-something-year-old flexible bendy wants to do the asana championships. Like, no matter who you are, I got you, because I've received the wisdom. I've kind of like cracked the code on this. So I was in that room teaching myself, receiving the knowing of postures like bow-legged mountain, one-arm bow-legged peacock, and the strongest and the deepest of back-bending queen of the universe, and all of these things, the leg all the way back behind me and down. And if you look at the photos, you don't even have to know what it's called. If you just see it, you can understand that's, by the way, that's not gymnastics. And by the way, that is not contortion either. It is deep, deep asana. So I used to meditate and pray. May I know who my guru is. May I know who my teacher is. May I know from whom this wisdom is coming. And I never really got an answer, except that at one point, one time I received the answer, and it was, well, it's me. And the answer just settled with me so fully that I never asked the question again. It's, if you believe in incarnations, then my belief is that I'm receiving something that I'm more like remembering, something that was with me from before. So, I don't require that anyone agree with me or believe as I do, just so it's not meant to be like, a challenge comment. But I don't really have any other way of explaining how this wisdom has come through me. And by the way, it was not something I was born with. It was something I created. And I know myself as a powerful creator of the intention. So, by the way, again and again and again, what I just said, I'm a powerful creator of my intention, and that is about the consciousness. Don't forget this. The consciousness with which you conduct your practice is the same as the consciousness with which you conduct your life. So I took my consciousness and I used it to create these postures, asanas that are super strong, deep, correct. Now I have that knowing in my tissues. I share myself with you in the form of the knowing in my tissues. So I am the source of the information that I speak. But that doesn't mean that everyone listening to this podcast wants to have a deep asana practice. And don't miss the point here. You cultivate your own consciousness so that you can be deliberate about the creation of your life, no matter what it is that you choose to create. Maybe you're an artist. Maybe you want to be a writer. Maybe you want to use this to really build a business. Maybe it's about relationships. So no matter what it is that you hope to cultivate and create, it's all about the consciousness with which you create. So again, I used my consciousness to create things like postures, and you can use your consciousness to create anything that is your most authentic truth in its fullest expression.
Well, so I'm really excited where this can go. And unfortunately, we only have like about 30 to 40 minutes. So I'm already going to plot for you to have a part two because.
Yes to that. Yes to part two. I love part twos.
Yeah, no, this is awesome. And one of the things, again, I always try to provide health coaches with opportunities to figure this out, because when we get a certification, we definitely have a lot of difficulties at times understanding the next steps. And you brought up consciousness. Would you suggest that cultivation of your own consciousness is the first step to doing that. And what tips would you say we can use to actually do that?
It is the first step to doing it. So I want to tell you that when I was cultivating this yoga practice, and there are two things I want to say right now. I'm making notes to make sure I get in everything I want to say in. So the first thing is that when I was doing all those postures, again, I lived in this perpetual state of inspiration. How can I? And I would get into that room and I would try to understand what position I need to be in. And therefore, what do I need to strengthen? What do I need to open? What is the order of operations of what I'm going to call everything I need? And by the way, nothing that I don't, and in the right order. And, and learning the aspects of mind. I'm going to say it this way. I was doing that for me, not in a selfish way. I was doing that for me. I was self-cultivating, and I'm going to start to change the words here. Doing it for me, self-cultivating, nurturing the seed. I was doing a lot of posting on Facebook back then about my practice. And I would just nurture the seed. And then I'd post something on Facebook, nurture the seed, post on Facebook. I had nurtured that seed so much for so long that it grew into a tree that had branches and leaves. And then then there were flowers that went to fruit. And then the fruit was like vine sweetened and sun ripened and falling all over the ground. And at some point I realized oh, I have all this fruit. I need to share it. And by the way, took me a long time to even realize that I could enjoy some of the fruit as well. The reward for the effort. But again, I wasn't even in it for the reward of the effort. I was just self-cultivating. And so then I knew that this had changed for me. And this is for your life coaches. I knew that self-cultivation had become service when it was no longer about me. I was no longer doing it for me. There was no aspect of, look what I can do. It was, let me help you.
Mm-hmm.
Let me help you. Let me show you. And by the way, it's not even about what I can do. It's about what I can help you do. And now I knew that my self-cultivation had led to service. Look at life coaches, you can only give what you have. That's kind of a deep and bold statement. You can only give what you have. You need to self-fortify, self-fortify, self-cultivate so that you have more to give. I used to have a couple of prayers. I'm going to say I still do. I'm just calling them back into the moment. So the first one is a prayer from actually Paramahansa Yogananda, who said, I will speak, I will act, but let my thoughts, my words, and my action be rooted in divine knowledge, divine inspiration, divine intelligence, anything that needs to come through for the other. And the other prayer that I would have is, may I do more, be more, have more to give, right? May more come through me. I can hold more. I can receive more, because by receiving, don't forget, giving and receiving are one and the same. You can only give what you have, right? And so when you're giving it, here it is again, you're sharing yourself in the form of whatever it is that you're giving, right? So what do? I'm a life coach. No, who you are is how you serve. Giving and receiving are one and the same. And you're sharing yourself in the form of whatever it is that you're giving. And so by giving it, you're knowing yourself as it. And then you can receive more. It's just a big vibrational picture of what's going on. I guess that's what I'm going to say about it. So self-cultivation is not selfish. Self-cultivation leads to service, and you can only give what you have. And so if you want to give more, you need to allow more for yourself in your life, more expansion, more letting, there it is, like more expansion of your consciousness, of your capacity to express your most authentic truth in its fullest expression, in its entirety. And that requires letting go of a lot of fear, letting go of a lot of thought identification, letting go of a lot of limiting beliefs, letting go of a lot of agreements made in fear. Because again, like all these things are really, these dots are all being connected. We don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So let's say you're a life coach and you have some beliefs that are deeply rooted in fear and you have some limiting beliefs, then you're going to be projecting those upon your people, right? You got to free yourself from that so that you don't project it upon them. And so that you don't hold them in judgment based on your own self-perception rooted in fear. Like there's a lot there. This is what yoga is. This is yoga. It's not even about the posture. The posture is what I'm going to call the tool we use to get there and the indication that we have. How about that? Can I tell a story about that? So yeah, this is a good way to understand that these words are not just like airy fairy, twinkling Christmas lights and incense. These words are tangible and they show up in the life. So, for example, in a yoga class, there's this posture that some practices use called standing head to knee, Dandiyamana Shavasana. And this posture is a very, very tricky little balancing forward compression. You have to be very, very flexible to get in that position. And you have to be very, very strong to hit it and hold it in stillness against gravity. So, and there, in my estimation, there's absolutely, positively no better way to learn how to concentrate. Remember those 5 modifications of the mind: self-control, determination, patience, faith, and concentration. There is no better way to learn how to concentrate than, for example, the standing balancing postures, not where you pass through it, where you have to hit it and hold it in stillness against gravity. So when I say to you, it's not even about the posture. The posture is the tool we use to get there and the indication that we have. So if we're looking at standing head to knee and the ability to concentrate, this posture is a tool that we use to learn how to concentrate. And once you can hit it and hold it in stillness against gravity, then it becomes the evidence that you have learned how to concentrate. So again, the tool we use to get there and the indication that we have. So that's one of the ways in which a yoga practice is cultivating the qualities of mind. Once you've learned how to concentrate, in this example, then you can take that rock solid ability to concentrate and use it in all of your life, no matter what you're doing. You can concentrate in pure time presence on anything that you're concentrating on: your family, your children, your career, your education, your art, your authorship, anything you choose to concentrate on, you now have the ability to concentrate. You see what I mean? So is it important to cultivate? Oh, you better believe it.
Yeah, I'm just curious now about, were you always good at business? Because I mean, you should obviously demonstrate this knowledge and confidence, and obviously yoga has played such a big role in it. But were you naturally good at business? I mean, what you've been.
That's like just a really insightful question.
Thank you.
And I have never received it before.
Oh, really?
I've never been asked that. I mean, I've had maybe a commentary of people that kind of notice that I have, what they think of as like both right brain, left brain.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you that as a young woman, I was a real estate broker for about 8 years. And I want to tell you that what I really, really loved about that capacity is the relationships, the people, the connections. So I loved looking at properties and I loved getting to know people and really embracing their vision and finding the right match. And that was the part that I loved. And was I solid at contract and negotiation? Contract, yes. Negotiation was always difficult for me then, much easier for me now. I don't do that anymore, but I seem to have an affinity for both kind of naturally, but primarily just because I believe in myself. Thank you. I have freed myself from limiting beliefs. So what I believe is that when desire and belief are a match, the universe grants all requests. And when desire, belief, and action are a match, I am undeniable. And I definitely navigate. I do not, I have to say it this way, I do not navigate with fear. Like everything that I've ever been really, really good at has been kind of like self-taught by me. So I know that I can, take things on fearlessly and receive some measure of competence in it. So I have been involved in business and transacting. I have been involved a lot. I seem to, my nature is Scorpio sun, Aquarius moon, Pisces rising, and my card of destiny is a King of Clubs. And so that King of Clubs energy is what they would call a master of consciousness, a master of knowledge. And then I use that for consciousness and spirituality. So it does seem to be inherent in my nature, the entire mind aspect. Oh my gosh. Just by you letting me think this out loud, I'm going to connect those two worlds. This is huge. I used to think that yoga was spine centric. And now I know that yoga is mind centric. So Ida, Pingala, Sushumna, the channel where the energetic channel where the chakras reside. Maybe we'll have that conversation some other time. It's a really good one. So we're talking about yoga being mind centric, and we're talking about consciousness. And now we're talking about every expression and aspect of consciousness, whether it's, I'm going to call it your connection to your divinity. So divine creative energy is divine energy. All of the artists and artist types, musicians, poets, and so on are primarily rooted in the right hemisphere. And then the left hemisphere is really more like analytical, by the way, discerning, judgmental, uses a timeline of a past, a present, and a future, and receives and processes and communicates through a spoken language. But all of that, whether it's rooted in humanity, left hemisphere, rooted in divinity, right hemisphere, all of that is mind. And to have all of that mind a little more open, fluid, cooperative, and all of it available, that's yoga. Somehow that all just makes sense. So you don't have to be so one or the other is what I'm saying. And especially you can cultivate that through a practice of yoga as well.
Wow. Yeah, no, this is a fascinating conversation. I really, it shows how much I need to catch up in my own world with that, and like see how, all your different connections. And I just want to just maybe wrap it up with that idea about the limiting beliefs, because I know that a lot of people who are just starting out, they have their limiting beliefs, whether it's the ability to receive, whether or not they're going to fail, or whether or not they're going to get any money out of this particular passion that they do have. So if you could speak on that for briefly as well, and see, again, it doesn't seem that you necessarily have to overcome that part of it, but
no,
there
let me
was
tell you,
probably...
what you just said was a blessing and a gift you've just given to your listeners. Because if I say to you, then you can only give what you have, then you've pointed to the opposite of that, which is receiving. You can only receive what you can hold, right? You can only receive what you can carry. And what you can carry and what you can hold is definitely limited by your own limiting beliefs about yourself. And they are probably likely rooted in either history or thought identification. And so again and again and again, that's all kind of like the work on the causal plane. So maybe we unpack that in a, none of these are like 5-minute or 30-minute conversations, but keep this going and I'll contribute, everything that I am to your listeners. So yes, you can only give what you have. So self-cultivate, and you can only receive what you can hold, what you can carry. And so check yourself on limiting beliefs and agreements made in fear. And that's again rooted in precognitive agreement, limiting beliefs, agreements made in fear, thought identifications. There are things that you're agreeing to as a being that you don't even know you've agreed to. And most of those agreements are obsolete, but you got to actually hit the reboot and free yourself, hit a reset of letting go of old limiting beliefs. So that's a good conversation to have.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
I think I would just speak into kind of like what my life looks like and what I'm going to call a Venn diagram, because one of the notes that I made for myself to not forget to tell you this, I actually came through this practice on the level of body is a learning device for the mind. And what I mean by that is taking yoga classes and doing yoga postures. And that took me all the way to being the head coach of International Yoga Sports Federation. And so I am a global master level yoga and yoga instructor, teacher. I'm like teacher of teachers and so on.
Mm-hmm.
But once I got that, then I moved into spiritual study, self-study, breath. So I'm also a breathwork facilitator, conscious connected breath for trauma release, for Kundalini activation. And also now I'm a level 2 practitioner of quantum healing hypnosis technique. So my life right now looks like a Venn diagram. And for people who don't know what that is, it's like two circles that are side by side, except that they're so close together that there's an overlap between the two. That overlap is like an almond shape. And one of these circles is all things yoga. And so that is like, I have an entire video platform for postures. I do a lot of private sessions. I have 3-day in-person events, and I participate in Yoga Sport World, which is a global certification program. The other side of that Venn diagram is all things spirit. So I do these podcasts, which I call satsang, because they are of a very high order, rooted in spirituality and service to humanity. So I do the podcasts, and I do a lot of intuitive spiritual counsel. Again, I consider like the breath work and the quantum healing, those are on levels unseen. And so those are on the side of spirit. But most people have come to understand that yoga and spirit are one and the same. So most people are in the overlap between the two. And just as a matter of mention, something that delights me is that our place here is called Yakashala. It's also a Y and an S. We didn't plan that. So we have yoga, spirit, Yakashala, all the S's. And at any rate, so it's our small private event center for the healing arts and spiritual sciences. And all roads lead to kimtangyoga.com and yakashala.com.
I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So that was actually a really smooth way of actually what I was going to end the call with is how to keep in touch with all the great things that you're doing. It is, yeah, you just did provide your website. What about social media handles? How could we take a peek at you over there as well?
It's all there by name, Kim Tang Yoga. So Facebook, I have a personal page, Kim Tang, and I have a fan page, Kim Tang Yoga, Instagram, Kim Tang Yoga. I haven't been working my YouTube channel, but you can see some tricky little postures there on YouTube. That was a little bit, that's when I was self-cultivating. I put a few things up. There's not much going on there, but I'm getting ready to get at it on all the levels. So YouTube and yeah, it's all there. It's easy to find. For sure.
Definitely. Yeah, well, I'm on a little bit of a YouTube journey as well. And I thank you for participating in that YouTube journey, because I will definitely have this up on YouTube when the time is correct for me and how I'm going to roll that out. So I definitely appreciate that. You have a wonderful background. I can't wait to share with that. It's wow, unbelievable. It puts mine to shame, but one day I'm going to get there as well.
No. You are doing exactly what you need to do to be exactly where you need to be in this moment. And so say yes to the chair you sit in, say yes to the room from which you podcast, say yes to this vibrational collaboration that we're creating right now. Yes to this moment, yes to that room, yes to that art piece behind you and that one too. So that's that, say yes to your life, because you are in creation. And then when you say yes to that moment that you sit in, say more of this, please. More of this, please. Say yes to it and then say more of this, please.
Yes, I love it.
We could have that conversation about vibrational creation too, so that people don't like cancel themselves out, right?
Yes, I'm working on it. I appreciate that. You've been fascinating, Kim. I love this conversation, and I hope to get that second part scheduled as soon as possible. But yeah, just thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode of the Health Coach Academy podcast. If you did, jump over to iTunes and leave a rating and or review. It goes a long way in helping get this message out to our fellow health coaches and people in our industry. Also, if you can, jump over to my website, omarcumberbatch.com, where I give out a lot of freebies, including my 5-day sugar challenge for people who are having issues with sugar. And also for health coaches, I have the book, Hidden. It's the 6 not so obvious ways to get your clients unstuck. Have a great day.